We are going to get started with our first panel of the morning. We have a moderator that I will hand the mic over to gladly. But before we do that, I'm going to do my best to give her an intro, okay? So our moderator today, she's an owner. Shout out to the business owners. Yeah, okay, business owners. The owner of the LM Experience. This is an event planning and management firm known for stunning, refreshing, and fun on-site online experiences, specializing in engaging your audience. A 10-year veteran of the event industry, Miss Lakisha Mosley. Yes, y'all. And if you'd like to follow her on social media, because I don't mind plugging people, because sometimes we act like we shouldn't plug ourselves, y'all go on and pull out those little phones and boxes. Lakisha M. Mosley on Instagram. That's LAKISHAMMMOSLEY. And don't forget, while you're posting all day, tag Melanin Minds.
Thank you. Let me just look. There's some logistics, y'all. Bear with us, sister. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to stand for a second. Good morning. Thank you, Legina, for that, amazing intro. Most people don't hype me up like that, so I appreciate that. Now, y'all got notes. Just bear with your sister, okay? I got notes. But I first want to say good morning. Thank y'all for coming to Melanin Minds Mental Health Conference, and give it up for Legina and Mel for an amazing conference, y'all. Let me tell y'all, it's not very many people that look like us that are doing things in this space. So I love to just uplift and give them some kudos. So as y'all know, I am. If you follow me on social media, y'all gonna see I'm real big in mental health, and I like to make fun of those who don't like what we do. And so I want to start off with introducing our panel. I'll actually allow them to introduce themselves. These are some amazing people. I am so glad. When I read their bios, I was like, yes, these are my people. So I'll start with you, Shani. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Firstly, thank you to Legina and to Mel. I'm so happy to be here with you all to spend some time. My name is Shani Godwin. I am the owner and founder of Communicate USA. We are a marketing communications firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. We work with major companies like Chick-fil-A, Georgia Power, Federal Reserve. I've been in business for 21 years, and I intersect this conversation in two ways. One, I'm a high-functioning, high-achieving perfectionist. I didn't raise my hand because I'm recovering, working on that. But I also am a person who manages actively a mental health condition. And so I advocate for mental health. I had to come out of the closet and find my own power and voice in the midst of corporate America with a lot of eyeballs and people on me. So I'm happy to be here and share my story. Thank you, Legina, for reminding me to shamelessly plug myself, because I always forget. I'd love for you to follow me on Instagram at I am Shani Godwin, and that's SHANI, God, like God, win. Thank you.
Thank you, Shani. And Hassan, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So my name is Hassan Hillard. I serve two parts here in this conversation, but I'm a aviation professional in the private sector. That, number one, is very, very small for the Black African-American men and women in a very low percentage. I control 6 countries for learning and development globally. And additionally, I'm a business owner for P3 Media, LLC, which is a media creation company working on filmmaking as well as production.
All right, so now, y'all, we're about to have a little fun. I got a few icebreakers for our panelists, and I'm so glad, Shani, that you shared your story as someone who struggles or has been diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder, which is high-functioning depression, where you can go a long time and not even know you're depressed. It is very engaging to have these conversations with two amazing individuals. So tell me a superhero that you can relate to and why.
Superhero questions. I'm just going to go with the first one that came to mind. This is going to sound completely opposite of what I'm looking like up here. I'm going to go with Wolverine from X-Men. One of the ways I learned to balance and manage my and own my story and my diagnosis, and this came to me in the hospital when I was hospitalized. Does anyone follow X-Men? Yeah. So the X-Men are gifted, right? The world calls them mutants, but they have these special talents and gifts. And so we'll say Wolverine, but really like all of the X-Men, I consider myself an X-Man. And God's gifted me with some very unique talents, but I had to learn how to manage my gifts so that they worked for me and not against me.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. Hassan, what would you say?
I kid you not. I joke about this all the time and say all of my superheroes have anger management issues.
Yes.
And since you took Wolverine, I probably in my later years I would identify with the Incredible Hulk. And I'm a very high level comic book nerd. So there's 3 Hulks. So there's red, green, gray. I'm probably green, gray, you know, because one of them is very, very smart, and he wishes everyone doesn't look at him as the thing that's going to break everything, and the other one just likes to rage out. I like them both. So yeah, I occupy both spaces.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I would say hunk too, because of sometimes how we go in and out of this depressive state that we're in. We look fine, but in my head there are thoughts that sometimes don't allow me to just be good. I can look really cute and I can be saying the right things, but in my head I'm being told I'm not enough, or I'm crazy, or I'm dumb. And so I'm really glad that we're having this conversation. So I'll start off with a few statistics. Now, according to the Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health, Black adults in the U.S. are more likely than white adults to report persistent symptoms of emotional distress, such as sadness or like feeling like everything is an effort. However, 1 in 3 Black adults only receive mental illness treatment. So I'm gonna start with you, Hassan. How have changes in societal perception of mental health affected people dealing with mental health issues?
So I really think that let's preface this before COVID. I really think that before that, we didn't have enough of a place in at least corporate America, and general mass media society overview in general. I don't really think that we had a place to identify what we struggled with openly. And that is a given that everyone does go through it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're middle America, white, trailer park, if you're, urban America, and I'm an urban America veteran. So crack era baby, that's where I come from. So if we all understood what that was, and that in itself identifies that there was a problem, and there was a persistence after that of the problem being unmitigated. It's only now that we actually have a voice because of more people in color being able to openly state that there is an issue, openly state that there is a problem, not necessarily hide it amongst ourselves, talk to our family members, tuck it in a closet. Those aren't things that happen anymore because everyone has access to everyone. It makes the world smaller, it makes the message larger. But I think, hopefully that answers your question, but I really think that in itself is the bridge. It was time and technology that allowed for us to be able to communicate better. And thankfully, we weren't shielded like other countries are.
Exactly. I love that. Shani, what's your take on that question?
Yeah, it's interesting. My take is coming from a personal perspective. So I was diagnosed in 2005 with a form of depression that only 2% of people with depression have. It's called depression with psychotic features, or psychotic depression. Not quite the same as bipolar, not quite the same as schizophrenia. It's basically you store up your depression and you get to a breaking point where you then have a psychotic break. So when I turned 30, I had a psychotic break. And being someone who was very high functioning, again, I just started my business, my family, which I was thinking about them very much this morning, had my family not taken me to get help, taken me to get admitted, I would not be on this stage today. As much as I want to say, oh, that was a one-time thing, I've had 3 psychotic breaks. The very last one was in Spain, Barcelona. I flew to Spain psychotic, and had I not been beginning and sharing my story, my cousin wouldn't have known what was going on, and I might really not have lived. So I got diagnosed in a day and age way before COVID where it was stigmatized. When I came out of the hospital the first time, I was told what to tell people. It was very awkward, and I spent about 5 to 6 years living in shame, embarrassment, not being able to vocalize. And when you do that, you have to then show up and keep performing, and I needed the space to heal. I think we're moving in the right direction. I say right now, mental health is trendy.
Yes.
I don't think we're having the real conversation. I think we are just talking in circles about it. So I think there's still a lot of work to do. I am very encouraged, though, because my niece is 14, my nephew is 10. Mental health therapists, psychiatrists, medicine, that's very normal for them. And thankfully so, because they have a heavy road ahead of them. So we're making progress, but there's a lot of ways to go.
I love that, and I really want to thank you both for just being open and sharing your story. I really want the audience to know that mental health does not have to be a death sentence, but it can be. I want you to think about the number of stars that we've seen who have took their lives, jumped off of a building, shot themselves. It is more commonplace now than it has ever been. You know, you talk about your break. I actually had one on last year around this time. I began to question who I was. Why was I existing? It was coming up to my 46th birthday, and I was like, why am I here? What is happening? Now, I didn't want to hurt myself, but I just didn't know why I was here, and so I went to the doctor because I was tired. I needed a pill. We want a pill. Something hurt, you want to go get it fixed. And she said, no, ma'am. You are very well depressed, and you need to go see a therapist today. And I don't think if she had made that appointment, I would have, because there's a lot of stigma within ourselves, which leads to my next question. In the Black community, we stigmatize mental health, and a lot of it is historical. A lot of it is generational. We see Big Mom and them, they went to the church, and they went to these other places to get help. I'm a PK, so I had to struggle with what that is. Could you share from your perspective personally, like, where you have in your own community been stigmatized?
Me?
Yes, sorry. You
Yeah, so church girl, wasn't a PK, but grew up in church. Very much of a faith walker, and my diagnosis made me have to kind of find God for myself and build in my own relationship. I will say, and I'll start by saying, wherever there is trauma, especially generational trauma, and so people of color all come from general trauma, just our existence in this country, there's going to be depression. You cannot be oppressed and not show up depressed, right? So we as a society and as a culture, we've normalized depression. When I look and when I started doing my work and my therapy, I started to see I wasn't the first one in my family dealing with this. I just had enough of an expression of it where I was able to get help. So I think one of the reasons I started giving voice to my story and sharing my story was because if we're not talking about it, if we're not taking care of ourselves, then we're powerless to these things. And so the work has been hard, I won't lie, very, very hard. And it has been stigmatized, particularly a lot of times by the church. My very first breakdown in psychotic depression, typically if I'm having a break, I'm having auditory hallucinations, which is hearing voices, and paranoia, delusions, the whole nine. My first happened on Ash Wednesday at church, and I was dismissed away. The pastor didn't even check on me. And, a lot of times in our community, the answer is going to be pray, or let me pray the demon out of you. So I got a lot of that. Oh, you just have a demon, or you have to, you're not praying, your faith isn't strong enough, God's not the author of fear, like all the verses, but without understanding and acceptance that you can be sick and spiritual, then it immediately diminishes what the person is going through. And so it's very isolating and hard.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I did a video and it went viral for the wrong reasons, but I said faith. It did. I got a lot of backlash, but I was okay. And I said faith is not a suitable substitution for mental health care. And of course, the church folks came after me with everything that they had. They was throwing them verses at me so hard, y'all. I had to go to the Bible myself and say, wait a minute, that's not what the word says. So, yeah. So Hassan, what about you? And what have you experienced from your own community?
It's layered because, and I fully agree with everything that you're saying. And so my grandmother was an evangelist. My father, I'm the last of the tribe of children, so I'm the youngest one. But even in that, so he's an older gentleman. He served in the military. He was in Vietnam 2 tours voluntarily, veteran of the Korean War. I'm just placing for what age he was. And he was my best friend. So everything that I'm saying about this, though, lets me know that what I witnessed from being reared by a very beautiful man, but he was very hard. He was PTSD, later diagnosed with that, right? Very electorally not involved in the medical system, right? Just kind of dealt with it on his own. And I think, by his own virtue, I think he did a very good job at that. But at the same time, what we do have is an ability that I've learned to keep a lot of things to myself. Yeah. And internalizing a lot of those things that actually showed up very, very later is actually November of 2015. I had a break as well. We as a people don't really advocate therapy. It's not really a thing. I've gone to therapy for grief counseling as well as anger. But even in that, I see the value in it because something was going to go very, very wrong that day if I did not have A, friends who stepped in, and then B, sought the help that was necessary afterwards. But it's the ability to be open with it. I've only seen my father cry 4 times, like in my entire life, right? I think I've only seen him laugh 3. So in that, we get this amalgamation of what he's dealing with every night and every day, along with still towing the line of being a good parent, ethical and moral. But even in that process, I still have to take those cues, and I'm just using him as the sterling example, but I still have to take those cues from how to manage this because that's the best example of going through a very, very hard time mentally that I've ever seen. So then I pattern mine to his. Okay, well, this is what I'm going through. Okay, could he have survived it? Yes. If he did, then so can I. And that's actually how I got through it after therapy. Right. After therapy. Still advocating the fact that we have to do that because even in going back to my community, the neighborhoods that I've grown up in, those gentlemen and ladies are in a bad space based on, by average, when we deal with the 83, 84 era of children growing up, which means we were born before that. A lot of those fathers are not there. A lot of the women are left to their own devices in raising the children. The children then have the streets as an example. Exactly. There has to be some level of morality there. Sometimes it is not. Yes. And now you're dealing with a melting pot of mental health issues too, right. Drug related and or not, traumas, stigmas. So all of them are there. But I would close in my sentiments in saying that I openly advocate for therapy because if you feel like you can't talk to someone, I'll actually add on to that, therapy and mentorship. Mm-hmm. So if you feel like you can't talk to someone around you, then you need to find someone who you can talk to in order for you to actually get understood. Because once you get understood, you can open up and talk to them about anything.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, y'all, isn't this good? I'm loving this. Oh my gosh, yes. So I love that you talked about the safe space. So one of the things that I did when I had my break, I noticed that there were no safe spaces for Black women entrepreneurs. As an entrepreneur, I could not say that I had a problem. Would you want to work with me? Would you trust me to plan your event? If I told you that mentally I was not there, I looked good on the outside, I would show up, but sometimes on the inside it would be bad. And just like you, Shani, it would be those moments where I would have to duck off somewhere and I would have to quiet the voices in my head. And so for me, I thought about what can I create that's for me, but also make it for other people. And so I created this space called Mind Your Business. As entrepreneurs, your mind is your business. That is how we make our money. If it don't work, nothing's going to work. And so I love how you said mental health mental therapy. We need that. It's only a third of us that are getting like mental health therapy. So I'll start with you, Hassan. What do you think is one of the biggest blocks, deterrents of us going to see someone?
Pre-existing family values.
Wow.
That's ideally it. I mean, if anyone's ever gone or remembers their household for how they grew up, there was, I mean, just depending on the age and the era that we're talking about, there was a lot more secret keeping than anything else. Yeah. There was a lot more very, for lack of a better word, binary values there. You're either going to do this or you're not. You're either going to be good or you're not. You're going to, have the food fixed or you're going to get a whipping. I mean, it's just much less talking. Children should be seen and not heard. People, that's how I grew up. There's a whole separate table for the children to sit at. Exactly. And raising my oldest, we didn't do that. And I've even had a back and forth with her grandmother about it. I said, we're doing something a little different now, because thankfully I was actually raised in an open household where there was an ability for me to communicate at the times where normally children would not be able to. There was a how was your day? There was a what did you do today? Why don't you tell me what it is that you did? And been able to express myself. There's actually a picture of me at about 4 years old with a microphone in my hand at pre-K. I kid you not. I'll share it with you later.
I believe.
So I was born for this. But that's the way that I feel like that's the precursor. That is instilled in us to we can have roaches, but we can't have rats. You can't go outside and talk. This is what's happening here, So if we are able to keep it there, and I'm just talking about the history, if we're able to keep it there, why would you go see a therapist? Why would you not be able to deal with that on your own? What's wrong with you if you can't handle that? Why are you crying so much? Like that was us. And that does need to change. And hopefully it will.
That's true. Shani, you have an experience church-wise. So I'll precursor the same question you with this. I was doing some studies. I host events as well, like virtual mental health events. And one of the ones I did was the Church of Mental Health. And of course, that got the most views. And one of the things I read was, it's hard to talk to people ancestrally when they think about the slaves who trusted God to get them through the Underground Railroad and get to freedom, to now say to those very people who still have that mindset, well, why would you go to a therapist? Your great-great-great-great-great-grandma did not. So with that in mind, what's your take on that?
I love when God lines stuff up. I was going straight down that lane, whether you asked me that question or not. So we come from enslaved people, and enslaved people who carried a heavy load, right? You think about the ancestors, you think about the stories in your family. My mom grew up in a segregated North Carolina, so I grew up hearing, the stories of riding on the back of the bus. I had this militant dad from Buffalo, New York, who was like, fight the power, but he wasn't living in the system either. And the reality is, because we carry such a heavy load historically, systemically, we see seeking help as weakness. And when my therapist taught me, whenever we use the word should, there's shame there. So I'm very intentional about listening for when people are saying they should. I should get help, but there's a shame associated with getting help. And I think when you've been responsible for carrying the load, it's very hard to release. We don't even know a lot of times what giving the load to someone would look like. And we can normalize anything, pain, heavy loads. It's our comfort zone. It's not healthy, but if you're used to always carrying the heavy load, it can be scary to release that load. So we've normalized the burden that we carry and found a badge of honor, I think, at the same time that it makes us strong. So I really think that we need to change the narrative about what strength looks like. When my dad died, strength looked like releasing and crying. And if strength looks like having a break and getting the help you need so that you can live and not die, then I think we have to rewrite the narrative that we've been given.
Yes.
That's where the biggest freedom is, because other cultures, they're not walking around with those mindset issues.
Not at all. I love that you said that. I feel like sometimes we stick ourselves in ruts with we stigmatize ourselves. Now, I have a question for you, Hassan, but first, we're gonna do another icebreaker.
Okay.
So let's think about a movie or a book that you think like really depicts what mental health struggles are like. I'll start with you, Shani.
All right, it's actually one of my favorite books. It's The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Pecola Breedlove, anyone read The Bluest Eye? Pecola Breedlove is the epitome, I think, of what so many young black women, I can't speak to the male side, I'm not a black male, but you know, she saw herself as so small and didn't see her power because she spent her time wanting to have blue eyes. And she was a brown girl with plaits, and she didn't see her own beauty. And so if you can't see your own beauty, if you can't see beyond what the world tells you you are, and move past that and see who God tells you you are, you already don't have a fighting chance. So part of how I was able to start rewriting my narrative, I had to realign my faith with my own relationship with God, my own relationship with Scripture, my own relationship with tools like journaling and meditation, so that I could recenter and really have that pour into me the truth of who I was. And then as you fill up, you got to take out the garbage first, which is therapy, right? But then you fill up with the truth. Now you're able to kind of come out and fight. And when the world throws those labels at you, then you know the truth. So, you know, they don't faze you as much.
Yep. That's a great one. I love that one. Hassan, what about you? Movie or book?
You almost had me, actually. I was stuck. For a whole second. I thank you so much for going first. 3 minutes. All right,
That
cool.
was
Got
intentional.
It. Yeah. So I'm going to go with a movie. So, and honestly, I think for the best topic, I would say Juice with Tupac Shakur and Omar Epps. And I believe the reason why is because as you were talking, I was like, what is it? Because I have these arguments all the time with my friends. I mean, I have the platform of the podcast. We do loose conversations, but it actually covered 4 things. It covered business, it covered culture, it covered entrepreneurship, it covered health and wellness. But ideally, when we start having these debates about music and movies, what do you like better, Boys in the Hood or Juice? I say Juice. I love John Singleton, but I'm saying Juice because Juice was more intense than Boys in the Hood could be because Tupac went, for lack of better phrasing, crazy. But he went power crazy. Yes. So in the story in itself, just summarized for those who don't care about the 90s or 90s movies. But the way that went is that those children were of the inner city. They had a great time. They were doing all the things that children, it was 4 of them, doing all the things that those children can do. In that process, one of them understands the quote-unquote power of the gun. It shouldn't have been there. I mean, they didn't need to be within the community. But nonetheless, now he understood that and became power hungry. And in that, one of his favorite movies in that film was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was truly about being powerful and being notarized and being a legend in their eyes, in a very youthful mindset of and he was willing to do anything to do it and to get it. And I think that is a direct reflection of an unfortunate mental illness, uncultivated, unmitigated, unmentored. And I think that would be a good example to use.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. I was going to say Menace to Society. And O-Dog is the character that I feel like struggled because a lot of times we have honor in the hood of the baddest person. But when you dead, who's honoring you like that? But he said, I remember the grandpa asked him, do you care if you live or die? And the other character,
I don't know.
He said, I don't know. But O-Dog said, well, I don't think God care about us anyway. I mean, look where he got us at. And, he goes on this rant before you know that he just says this curse word to the grandpa. But I think a lot of us struggle like that. Societal poverty leads to a lot of things that we deal with as well in the mental health industry. So I really love that both of y'all examples. So Hassan, I got a question for you. Now,
Making
I
me nervous,
did,
but okay.
yeah, be nervous. Don't be nervous. I got you. We're friends. So one of the things I say quite often is that being a strong black woman is ghetto. It's ghetto.
Accurate.
And it's a myth from the male's perspective and the mental health perspective. What do you think about some of us who can't put down the cape?
My opinion of strong black women. Is that what you're asking? I just want to make sure I say this right.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
You ain't gonna get in trouble. We love you.
No, I got you. Is that camera on me to catch this bead of sweat running down my face? No, I believe that it's a beautiful struggle. But it is both. So I don't have an opinion about anyone who can't put down the cape. I think that if you're going to be a perfectionist above anything else, you understand how much of a struggle it is not to just handle the things, right? I won't even put myself in equation to this because it's a whole different journey that we should be respectful and appreciative of, like in observing that we can support it. And even if you can't support it, you should just say, all right, look, I get it. And I don't have a foothold in how to be as supportive in this, so maybe I should take a step back and learn something. I think that is a man's role, either to be supportive or to be observant. And
I was just finna say, y'all,
I
he
said
get
something
man
cool.
of the year.
Cool. High fives.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. Support or learn. Okay, I deal with handling literally everything. Okay,
Yes.
And I understand it, but I can't have it any other way because I understand what happens that I got to go to sleep with me at the end of the night.
What?
And so I need to know that I did those things.
Right.
And that's what I think the struggle of the perfectionism is. Now, to your point, and my opinion of it, I know I respect it, I admire it, I understand that there's a lot of unfortunate circumstances that could lead us here. And so again, I try to be very objective in the conversation to understand, well, how did you get here? Right. My favorite question to ask, anyone that knows me will say it, like, how did we get here? Because I want to know what it is that those steps, those choices that it took to get, look at these two, that it took for you to get your feet where we are. It's important because those are the breadcrumbs. Mistakes are not. It's beautiful. It's twisted. It's unfortunate. It's rewarding at the end. If you bring children into the equation, what better job could you have to make sure that there's another individual that can be an upstanding member of society should you do that job correctly. So yeah, I think that's probably loose. I dodged a bullet, but I mean that's still how I feel. That's still how I feel.
I love that. Number one, y'all. Did you give him a high five, Shani? Because that was like, because do you know most times, and no offense to the men in the room, but most time when you ask a man that, they say, well, I think she should do this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, you got fed, didn't you? Your clothes are clean, aren't they? What do you mean? So, Shani, you and I both agree it's ghetto.
It's ghetto.
But what is your take on that whole strong black woman?
I'm going down book lane again. So I'm a writer, y'all, at my core. I love books, reading, writing, the whole nine. I quote this line a lot. In Zora Neale Hurston's book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, there is a line so poignant, it jumps out, and it says, black women are the mules of the earth. And I love the metaphor of that because that is what it feels like most of the time. Like, think about a mule, right? What does a mule do? It carries, right, a heavy load. And women of color are the only women that have to live in a world with the duality of white privilege and male privilege. And black men can still go in certain rooms and be connected and move in ways that we have to. So I very begrudgingly was taken to the Barbie movie. I was not a Barbie girl, and I went with my friends, and I did the pink thing. But the without spoiling the movie, the speech, because I took a little, I checked out for about 30 minutes. But when the speech, if you go see the movie, there's a poignant movie where a speech is given, and the character starts talking about the oppression of women and all the things that we have to do to just be in the world. From you can be bright but not too bright. You can be bold but not too bold. I think black women, women of color, get a double layer of that, right? So we got to carry the load of our race and the load of our gender, and it is very ghetto at times and takes a lot of energy. So just imagine who you would be if you weren't carrying a load.
Right.
You got to find her inside of you and shake that thing off, or because it shows up here in our mindset, right? What we let others tell us who we are instead of knowing who we are and pushing against it. So it's hard, but you got to see it to be able to fight it.
Yes. So y'all, let me just tell y'all how perfectly aligned we are. My next question is, and I'll preface it with two movies that come to mind for me when we talk about perceptions, and that's what my next question is Encanto and Turning Red. And if you all have seen those movies, I have a 1-year-old grandson, unfortunately, and we watch those every time he comes over. Send other suggestions, please. So in Turning Red, you know that May is a young girl and she has a mom who wants her to be a certain way. But in their family culture, they suppress a red panda. They actually do some sort of, I say exorcism, y'all, for lack of a better word, to get the panda out and put it into their favorite charm. But May decides she's gonna go against the norm and she's going to embrace her panda. She makes her panda fun and things like that. And then we know about Encanto, we all kept talking about Bruno. I was like, who is Bruno?
We don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno, right? And when you think about old Uncle Jeff, who he never came to family functions, or if he did, he was in the back room, and we never really knew what was wrong with him until older. Like, I think there was some of my relatives, like, I still didn't know what was, like, I mean, I know now, but at the time I didn't know. So when you think about those movies, and those are just brief synopses of them, when we talk about perceptions, how do you think perceptions and stigma are relative?
So for me, it's a simple answer. Perception is reality. So if you perceive it, you believe that's true. But it's just perception. So who thinks it's like really hot this summer? Like really hot, just a tad? I'm from the South, I'm from Atlanta. I abhor summertime. I just do not like being hot. But I got the blessing to go to Morocco, Marrakesh, Morocco in June. Amazing experience. Y'all, it was 113 degrees every day, okay? And we walked everywhere. You're talking 2-3 showers a day. It was such an amazing experience. I just put that part out of your mind. Well, guess what? The heat's not bothering me this summer, right? It is hot, but I went somewhere hotter, so my perception of this hot changed, so my reality changed.
Oh, I love that. So y'all think if I can perceive that I see a hot chocolate fudge sundae in front of me? I'm
Yes,
just
ma'am.
playing, y'all. But you know, but you're right. I just got back from a business trip in Vegas, and they told me, they was like, girl, it's gonna be hot. And when I got off the plane, the heat hit me in the throat. But again, I was like, well, in Texas, it's wet. It slap you with water. So I was fine. So that is very, very true. I love that. Hassan, you come from a very strong background, perception, and stigma.
Actually, it's we were meant to be on this stage together. So I was in Morocco myself. I actually was in South Spain. I was in Seville, Spain. I took a boat over to through the Strait of Gibraltar, and then went to Morocco, Tangier. And I have never understood heat like that. The sun was right here. It was right here. And I'm bald. I have no protection. So I'm just dying on the inside. Recognized the fashion, had to change clothes. Okay, cool. We got in some airier clothes. Oh, I get it. Okay, this is nice. I had never felt heat like that. I've never seen poverty in the degree that I did in Thailand. We have poverty. Thailand is Sally Struthers level heart-wrenching. You know, and I'm sure I guarantee there's other places on the continent that are not being exploited for the sake of that. See it firsthand in those two places, which is just to understand heat, and so the perception of it did change. I look at how we perceive and address those situations differently, and I'm from here, I'm acclimated. It's fine. Thank God my car has perforation and heat and seats that can just get all that out by the time I start it. But I do understand it. That's perception. Stigma, however, I would probably disagree respectfully, because I think that there's an alignment with stigma and stereotype. Yeah. So if you look at and perceive individuals to be strong because of whatever circumstances, right? Oh, you've gone through all of this, you must be tough. Oh, you saw all of these things. I don't understand how you could hold up. I would have broke if that's the case. No, you're right. And I did too. Mm-hmm. I just don't wear break like you. But at the same, yeah, right? She's the only one. I'm too far away to not high five you. Give me an air high five. Thank you so much. But it's indeed the fact. So when we start to deal with this, and even in my professional career, the ice had to get broken in so many different ways, because aviation, if you look at commercial, and you can Google it, I mean, these are facts. If you start looking at commercial aviation, they talk about the subsect of unions, but the population, for lack of a better word, of Black or African Americans in the aviation industry, or in aerospace in general. That's defense, space, exploration, as well as aviation commercial. Okay. I'm private, so my percentage has to be smaller, right. Number one. Number two, I'm a part of the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals anyway, lifelong member, but even then, we're talking about a coalition of people to try to make provisions for us to have better standpoint in the space. Right. You'd have to ask yourself why that is. If everything was so equal, then why exactly do we need a Black union or Black Pilots Union? Why do we need OBAP? You know, so if that's the case, respectfully, again, those are not perceptions. The perception is what brought in the stereotype in the first place, right. But the stereotype is where we actually operate under in order for us to kind of crack our heads on the glass ceiling or break it. Right. Thankfully, I was able to break a little bit of it. Right. Like, I'm not done yet. I'm trying to go for business partner or executive, but ideally, now maybe next year we have something else to talk about, right? Yeah. But that, I think that those two things, maybe they're boyfriend and girlfriend, but they are not the same.
Right.
Yeah.
I love y'all. This panel is, these two are the bomb, okay? I am loving this. So we're all a little seasoned. We're older, whatever words you want to say. Better. I like that. We're better. And so we grew up in an age where we was outside all the time. Somebody asked me the other day, like, oh, you didn't watch this show when you were young? I watched what my mama had on the TV, and I bet not had touched that TV. So some shows now, you can't pay me to watch them. So you mentioned your niece and nephew, which I love. When we think about our younger generation, what are some things that we can do to help them with mental health challenges and stigma, despite social media and the digital world that they seem to live in? Because every time you look, they like this. You know.
I love this question because it's something I give a lot of thought and intentionality to with my niece. My niece is 14, my nephew again is 10. So my niece is starting high school, going from a very private insular school to public school. And in Atlanta, they start school on Tuesday, August 1st, believe it or not. And my nephew is leaving the Episcopalian school where he was getting teased for having, when he started wanting to wear twists and cornrows, being called chicken head and all these things. And so they carry a heavy load. I think because I've done so much work, I see it as my responsibility to equip them with the coping skills and tools and teach them how to give voice to their feelings. I have no problem admitting my age because I'm proud of it, and I feel like I'm just getting to the starting line of life, but I'm 48. I will be 49 in November. And and thank you. And but it took me all of that to find my voice. We weren't given a voice. Our voice was, we were told to be quiet. Exactly. We were taught to suppress. So we try to give them space to show up as themselves within limits. So, give them the right boundaries, but also give them the tools, empower the words so that they can advocate for themselves, because life, it will not be a crystal stair. And I think that if I had been able to get some of those things, I would have shown up in the world with more self-esteem. A lot of my success was really striving to prove my worth, but if I already thought I was worthy, would I have been striving as hard? And it wouldn't have created a a fertile ground for the depression to kind of take root. So,
Hassan, what about you?
Excuse me. So I have 2 children. So my oldest is 22. She just turned 22 in May. My son turned 3 in June, and he's 3. So there's that. But the thing that I mandate for him is the same thing that I mandate for her, and we go outside. So it's not your value system. I think that it's very, very important to have a value system and to instill that into your children so that they understand what it is that later in life, later on when you're older, you'll understand, but later on in life, it's going to make some sense to them how they can establish better coping mechanisms.
Right.
My daughter was severely depressed. It was based on our separation and such, and it was a problem. Now, how she got past that through means therapy, counseling, but she also had to develop a way to balance her serotonin levels. I advocate. I'm a former fitness professional. I'm a hiatal athlete, so we understand that. And even in my mind, I go through a depressive state in the summertime because that's actually when I should be competing. It was for years. Yeah. That was it. So I knew that I needed to be in shape to do this when the spring and summertime hit. So those were items that I always mandated. There's tons of things that we always did that were outside, because when the sun hits you, you're going to feel better. When you sweat, you'll feel better. When you move, you'll feel better. Even most recently, she transitioned from Tennessee back down to Texas. She really didn't want to. Thankfully, she listened to Daddy. But at the same time, it was still, I don't want to be here. Keep moving, right? And this is just the way we deal with it. It's not the way. It is my way, and that is my child, and my way works, right? So for yours, it may work differently, but this worked for her. And even now, text messages are still like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm okay. It's a little sad. I don't have a lot to do. Go outside." And literally, this is what I say: Go outside. Now he doesn't have a choice. We're going outside every day. We just wait till the sun goes down. It's way too hot. He's got way too much hair. But just we'll go outside then, and even in that, it helps him calm down, because they get agitated. You can see it, even if they're not communicative. You can still see the agitation, because in my era, I got the TV plug pulled from in front of me and said, "Go outside." Like, "Hey, are these your toys? Can you get them dirty?" "Yes." "Go outside." And then they would close the door and dare me to come back in until the sun came down. There's value in that. We got into adventures based on this, and there's even at her age, she's very, very young generation, but even at her age and growing up, she really didn't do that until I get outside, go make friends, go touch grass, and she'd go down to the creek and get bit by a horse. That happened, but I'm glad it happened, because otherwise you would just be sending messages to your friends and wondering why their tone is off in what you read. It's a very sensitive generation that we have now. As a hiring manager, tell me if I go on too long, but this is a soapbox. But as a hiring manager, what I see now, and I consult with this company and 2 other ones about it, is that you have to appreciate what's happening now within the range of people that you're hiring for the job that you're paying for. If we give you $50,000 a year to do a job that is higher stress, they won't take it. They won't take it because the stress level to them, which is manageable to us, but look what all we've had to manage, right? But the stress level that they refuse to deal with, they don't believe that there's a recession. It's this or Uber Eats. It's this or Starbucks to them. They don't care. They want to be amongst the people who understand them. They can complain about things in a linear fashion, and they can be related to. If I tell you, 22-year-old whomever, that this is your job, you go tell your friends who are doing Uber Eats or Starbucks respectfully. So what do you do for a living? Say, well, I facilitate trips globally for private jet owners that need to go here and there, and I have to make sure that everything's taken care of. There's no relatability to that. None. And so they're like, what kind of nerd is that? And now you're ostracized, which is, and it can happen, but at this level, with this generation, it impacts them more than what it would for me or whomever else, right?
That's true. Yes. Oh my gosh, y'all, this panel. This has been amazing. I am loving it. So I'm going to have y'all tell people how they can get connected with you. And I don't know, do we have time for questions, Legina? Yes. Okay. Okay, so great. Well, I have them say how they can get connected. If you have any questions for us, please, we're an open book. Ask us. Start with you, Shani.
Hi, again, thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed being here and sharing with you all. On Instagram, again, I am Shani, Shani, Godwin, Godwin, Godwin. And you can also link in with me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, need resources, want to share anything, feel free to DM me on either of those platforms. I'd be happy to be your friend and connect.
Yes, love it. Hassan.
You can find me on Instagram under P as in Papa 3 Media LLC, P3 Media LLC. It's a gold emblem, most likely. That's a branded logo that I have because, again, these are the things I consult about. That is the best way to reach me on Instagram. On LinkedIn, I'm under my name. That's Hassan Hillard. I apologize. First name. So my first name is Hassan. Last name is Hilliard. Yes, ma'am. And that's on LinkedIn. You can probably find me on Instagram the same way. And I welcome any and all messages, feedback, comments. I appreciate your attention. Thank you again for your attention today. And I will be workshopping at 3 o'clock should anyone be interested in attending.
Yes, make sure y'all definitely attend. Again, I'm Lakisha Mosley. You can follow me at Lakisha M. Mosley. You'll see a mixture of all kind of things on. Okay, you ready? It's LAKISHAMMOSLEY. Thank you. Yes, you're welcome. So any questions from the audience? Don't be shy. We answer all questions.
I have a comment. When we're talking about like mental health in generations, and we officially have 6 generations in this house
Whoop,
in the whole
whoop.
conference.
That's good.
When we're talking about it, I always hear a lot by generation, like they did this, they don't do this, we do this, all of those things. And I like talking about like the build of generations, like millennials are a generation that is very much standardized, like taking breaks and staycations, and you will respect us if we're going to work with you. And Gen Zs have taken that, and now their threshold for what they can manage, like you were saying, is a lot less, right? But that's something that has been given from all these generations for them to have the privilege to do it. And it's about the balance of giving it back and forth. And so I just want to know, in that comment, I want to know y'all's take on, the appreciation, like, for the generation before you and the one that's coming after you, and how you feel like that's applying into your own mental health journey. Because what I've heard is all 3 of y'all just talked about what maybe 10 years ago is the crazy. Y'all all said y'all are crazy, but y'all all have jobs and are working and are even staying on stage, and nobody in the audience is like, they can't help us. We're like, that's who I need to go to. Because I didn't know anything. I was like, because I just say that I'm actively high-functioning depressed. I didn't even know there was a medical term for it. So now I'm like, I'm about to lay on my therapist's couch.
Yes.
So I just want to know where y'all are at with like the different generation above and under you.
Yeah, I love this question. So I'm definitely standing on the shoulders of a baby boomer generation. The interesting thing about me, the gender roles in my family were reversed. Both of my parents were professional, but my mom was the corporate climber, and my dad was a pharmaceutical salesman, so he could meet us at bus stops, take us to ballet lessons, all of that stuff. He cooked. So my orientation as a woman is anchored deeply in this boomer climb, get a job. Y'all, I had my business for 10 years, and my mom kept saying, what are you doing? Why don't you just go work for Chick-fil-A? They got benefits. And I was like, I can buy benefits over here. It's a business. So it took her coming to work with me for her to even get it. Likewise, as a Gen Xer, I always had a millennial spirit. There weren't millennials, so people did think I was crazy in corporate. I left corporate because I wanted breaks and balance. And so I've kind of been a crusader ahead of the millennials speaking this talk. I'm really excited because this is my last day at work, and I will be off from Monday, July 31st until September 4th. And in our company, we have a policy where we do not, you have to sign it to work there. You cannot email after 7 p.m. on weekends, on evenings and on the weekends. If we're off, we're off. So we're doing some really pioneering work to advocate for mental health in the workspace, but it's hard because baby boomers are leaving, Gen Xers are there right now. We're in charge, and then the millennials are coming, but it's getting easier. And I love that my niece and nephew can talk about therapists and medicine and all that very openly with no judgment.
So I'm a Gen X. I thought millennials were very disrespectful, and you would not find me, I wouldn't hire any of them in my company. And I was a grocery store manager for HEB, and y'all, if you know anything about HEB, they're really big on partners. They love their partners, and so they actually sent me to a class for emotional intelligence. I am a personality, so I want to get from A to B the quickest way possible. I don't want the fluff. I don't know why you didn't show up. I don't care why you didn't show up for work. I just know you didn't show up for work, and I needed my produce wall filled. What I can tell you now is that I appreciate the fact that millennials came about and taught me how to take a break and take a rest. And so now in my own company, I have some of those same policies. I have an iPhone. I love the focus. I love the focus status. And when people see that show up, they're like, uh-oh, that's right. And it's with my clients as well. I set the bar for when you work with me, you can't talk to me after 5 o'clock. I don't care what's going on with your event. I will see you tomorrow or whatever the case may be. So I think for me, I had to learn, and a lot of that is PK and learning from a mom who was very, very strong, and a dad who was, equally as strong, that you always had to be respectful, and you talked when it was your turn, and you just were quiet. And millennials was like, I'm right here, and I got something to say, and if you can't respect me, I'm not gonna talk to you. So they really taught us how to take breaks, and I think it helped me be bold about saying that I have a mental health challenge, and be bold to say, well, if you don't want to work with me, I'm okay with that too.
I have an abstract. So I have very similar. So the gender roles were switched in my household. My father actually was more or less the stay-at-home parent. So throughout all of the things that he was struggling with, he still did that. He actually got laid off in like 85 and said, I'm just not going back to work, I'll just take care of him. Mm-hmm. So my mother did the corporate climb. And that in itself, defined their relationship the way it did. So I understood how to manage at every aspect of household management through my father's eyes, which would be atypical, and especially not in the community, because he was the only father on the block. So everyone else was either being raised by their mother, the grandmother, grandparents, right, aunt, something like that, right, in one of those areas. So that was interesting to me. He actually became the father of the neighborhood. They had to embrace him as their go-to, right? And he, again, me being the youngest of his children, I was a generation separate from my brother, right? So I think I'm classified Gen Y. I'm not Gen X or Gen Z, none of that, but I'm Gen Y. But I identify more within the Generation X, just based on mannerisms, management, understanding how to handle it. So this is the abstract. I can appreciate what a young person has in terms of their sensibilities and their, we'll call it refusal, to toe the line the way that we have. I understand it. There is less glory in that, though, because if you're allowed to have more of that at the time, I'll summarize in 1 minute. If you're allowed to have all of that leisure, then you won't understand the struggle that will allow for you to have more pleasure later based on what you accomplish. I can leave it at that.
I love it. Thank y'all so much. Thanks again to Legina and Mel for allowing us to grace the stage. Thank you to my amazing panelists. And we hope y'all stick around because this is going to be a great conference. Thank you.
All right, give it up one more time for the panel. Yes. Now we're gonna start some standing OV right over here. We're gonna start like buzz up here on this floor because I'm gonna give away stuff on the main stage, right? We giving away stuff. Don't tell them downstairs. They need to come up here. Competition style. Okay, so I appreciate y'all. And you can leave it. We'll reset everything. One more time for the panel. Yes, 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 yes. I'm going to wait now, y'all. I had 2 Celsius already. So if y'all see me outside of this can right here, say no, Legina, no. Everybody try it. Say no, Legina, no. Yeah, just tell me no. It's fine. I have ADHD, so you can redirect me. I don't get offended. Okay, so again, just for overview of everything at the conference, there's 15-minute breaks. We ran a little bit over for this panel, but we leave space for that because clearly these are the conversations that need to happen. Everybody's here the whole time, so if there was somebody on stage, somebody that's doing a workshop, and without hounding people, but good conversations, there's tables and places to sit everywhere. So make yourself comfortable and do all those things. So let's give away stuff. I don't even know. Okay, it holds my weight, so we're fine. So we have a photo booth going on. Today, it's a selfie photo booth. Sunday, it's going to be at 360. So don't act like you ain't excited. Yes, we're doing this. But Branded Local is doing the 360 and selfie and has these little guided journals that we're just giving away. So let's do a quote. My favorite quote that I heard during this panel was, "It's not the way, but it's my way." I loved that quote. It's not the way, but it's my way. So if anybody can tell me which one of the people on stage, yes. Yes, you get a journal. Yes. And really quick, give everybody, what's your name? Yes. Winning. We'll do one more. So somebody give me a quote that you heard during the panel. Quote, anybody? It can be a paraphrasing. Roaches in the house, but not. Okay, I went downstairs to get this kind of stuff. Can you break it down a little bit? Roaches in the house. Like snitches get stitches. Okay, you're not supposed to say that anymore, apparently. Here you go. You get a journal. I love it. Okay, I have another journal give. I'm going to hold off on it because I'll just start giving away everything in the conference, and I got other stuff I'm supposed to give away for 3 days, so I'm going to hold back. But we also have Celsius energy drink here. Shout out to Celsius. Everybody in this room, I'm taking care of you. You get a Celsius. Ha, yes. We also have iCryo. iCryo is giving away like 4 wellness packages for iCryo out in Bel Air. They are family ran. A black male who is here this weekend with us is the general manager, so that's super fun. Next up to the stage, what time is it? Where are we at, y'all? Is it almost noon? Is it noonish? It's almost noon. We need, go ahead. I'll move around you. Okay, so at noon, we have on main stage over here, yes, mental health and finances, right? When we talk about these pillars and holistic mental health, it means everything. You got to be the money too. We got to talk about our money, and we have to normalize those conversations around our money. So that's going to be here on main stage. That's a panel.